Hatsune Miku is considered one of the most famous Japanese characters to exist in the 21st century, and it's not really a surprise considering how she has impacted not only music culture, but pop culture, anime, and as someone who was introduced to Hatsune Miku in the early 2000s on YouTube watching a concert of her iconic song World Is Mine, I definitely can see the hype behind such an incredible character who can be molded to any type of personality or song that you see fit to add to her and to create with her image. Now, if you have been living under a rock and you don't know who Hatsune Miku is, that is totally okay. I will quickly explain. Hatsune Miku is a Vocaloid software, a voice bank that is artificially created and can be used to create songs. Now, this software was created by a company in the early 2000s who were looking to revolutionize the music industry by creating virtual singers who could sing any song. And believe it or not, Hatsune Miku is not the first Vocaloid or virtual singer to ever be created. In fact, the first overall Vocaloids were Leon and Lola, who were English soul singers created in the early 2000s. However, the first Japanese Vocaloid was Meiko, who was released by Cryption Future Media in 2004, who is considered kind of like an One-san type of character by the company. And actually, I think she has one of the better voices if you look at all of the different characters. Now, when Hatsune Miku was being created, the company wanted to have a more cute sounding character, and they wanted a character that had an image to her, because prior to this, they had created voices without a distinct image, and that was something that came later in production. So when they designed Hatsune Miku, they wanted to have a character that looks really cute and obviously creates this idol type of phenomenon from the character image and creates this kind of persona around her where it's not just her voice, but it's also her look that pulls you into the product and makes you want to create songs with her. For example, the song World Is Mine that we all know, one of the most famous Hatsune Miku songs, was written by this producer who obviously bought the rights to use the Miku voice bank, and then you can create whatever song you want. And this is not only popularized by Japanese singers and producers, this is also used in the West, especially for hyperpop and other alternative music genres, because Miku's voice is pretty iconic. Everyone knows who she is, and it's just a really fun way to create one-of-a-kind songs without having to hire a voice actress or sing them yourself. Or if you want to have a certain feel to them, a certain look to them, you can choose the voice bank that matches that song. It is no surprise that this is the reason that Hatsune Miku absolutely blew up. She became a worldwide phenomenon pretty quickly, from not only the famous producers creating songs with her, but the amount of people who wanted to go to concerts to see this virtual idol singing. And Hatsune Miku's popularity can really be linked to viral internet culture, as from the period that she was created, from 2007 to 2008, people would be posting videos on Nico Nico Doga or on YouTube where they would have her cover different silly songs holding leeks, which is one of her symbols, such as Levan Polka, and they would become internet memes. They would become viral across the internet because there's this wacky, silly song being sung by this cute girl, and the fact that she is this artificial girl singing it, not a real person, really added to the amazement and wow factor of the character, because it's just like a real life anime character, and it's so eccentric that people just fell in love with her. Now, one of the reasons that she did become so popular was because of the collaborative ownership. Because Miku didn't have an official backstory, she was just this character literally created as a blank slate. People could have their own song or their own image for her, and they could paint a picture of the character that they wanted her to be, which made her into this kind of like internet-owned original character that we hadn't really seen before, because usually when you have a favorite anime character or a favorite character from a game or a series, they already have a pretty intricate backstory. So to have a character where her backstory literally does not exist is insane, and it obviously allows for complete unrestrained creative freedom. Krypton pioneered this insanely cool 3D holographic projection technology in order to have Miku perform concerts worldwide, which would involve sold-out arenas in not just Japan, but other countries across the world, with her performing these unique one-of-a-kind songs. Obviously, this popularity has not died down at all in the future, as I can guarantee if you go to any figure shop in Akiba or in Japan in general, you will see a Hatsune Miku figure. She has so many different figures, so many different merchandise pieces, probably the character with the most figures to exist ever. Quote me if I'm wrong. If you don't know what yumejoshi is, it's essentially someone who ships himself with a fictional character. So someone who sees a character and they think, okay, I really love this character, I really have feelings for them, and so they ship themselves with that character. But there's also yumedanshi, so literally dream girl or dream boy, people who are fans who basically self-insert themselves dating fictional characters. You could also call it yume ship or yume shipping, which essentially, like, yume means dream, so it's basically like a dream pairing of yourself with the character. And essentially these people ship themselves with either a OC that they have made up, or they have their own OC of themselves with the character, with another fictional character. Obviously, in the West, we have the self-insert idea where we can imagine ourselves as the main character, where all of the other characters in the series are magically in love with us, and even proper professional games in Japan have these themes, such as diabolical lovers, diabolical storyline, mind you, because I swear all of these guys are related somehow, so that's a bit weird. But anyway, off topic, majority of these games, the character does look pretty plain, so that you can implement your own persona and your own look onto them. Now, some of the most popular activities for people who are yumejoshis or yumedanshi is collecting merchandise. Obviously, collecting a lot of merchandise of your favorite character is one of the most popular pastimes for people who love a character, whether that is platonically because they see that character as just their favorite, or if it is romantically and they ship themselves with that character. Oshikatsu, which is again doing activities related to your oshi. And if you don't know what that word means, it's basically your favorite person, your favorite idol, your favorite character, your number one. And when it comes to oshikatsu, there are so many different things you can do, but usually it is going to a cafe, bringing acrylic stands or bringing keyrings, bringing plushies, and essentially showing your love for that character through your outfits, through your purchases, through buying cakes for them on their birthday, from doing roleplay, commissioning fan art of you and that character. And I would say that oshikatsu is a really great way to express your love for a character, and especially for marginalized groups such as people who are queer, LGBTQ, it means that they are able to express their love for the same gender without feeling as much discrimination or oppression. Because in Japan, I feel like it is in general easier to say, oh, I have a crush on this really beautiful girl character, than to say, actually, guys, I'm just gay. And that is sadly the truth with Japanese media, is that for people who are queer, for people who are presenting as LGBTQ, not straight basically, it's easier to present yourself this way than it is to present yourself as just gay. And obviously, because of how popular these fandoms and this otaku culture is, it means that some people can take it a lot further, such as marrying their favorite fictional characters, which brings us on to the topic of today's video, which is a man called Akihiko Kondo who married Hatsune Miku in 2018. And he held an unofficial wedding ceremony where he wore this very smart suit, and he brought a plushie of Hatsune Miku to represent her to the wedding ceremony. And looking at this ceremony, actually at the time, I thought this was one of the coolest things, because I was like, this is so cool, like seeing someone marry an anime character. It was a lot less normalized than it is now. Even now, it's still very bizarre to people, but there are a lot more people doing it nowadays, whereas back then, it was definitely a shocking and rare thing. What I want to criticize is including people in something that they do not consent to, because this man has come under fire for bringing an adult doll of Hatsune Miku to a children's playground. And this is where I feel like we need to talk about where fiction can affect reality. This man, he is pretty famous online for marrying Miku. In fact, I'm pretty sure that their ceremony has gone viral countless amounts of time throughout the years, both in Japan and across the world. And for the most part, people are pretty positive because his story is pretty sad. He experienced workplace bullying where an older woman bullied him, and that made him feel very insecure. He talked about how as a kid he would be rejected a lot, and that made him also feel pretty terrible about his self-esteem. And so he realized that he was fictosexual. Now, if you don't know what fictosexual is, it is someone who is attracted to fictional characters, and they can have romantic relationships with fictional characters. And these people, it's like a subcategory apparently of asexuality. So some people experience attraction on different levels, where some people who identify as fictosexual, they will also experience attraction for humans, like real people, and some people don't experience any attraction to real people and only experience attraction to fictional characters. So there is a real spectrum about it, and there's a lot of different people who fall into this category. And again, this is not me criticizing those people. I think if it makes you happy and it's not hurting anyone, I don't care. This is more about how you go about it in real life. I don't know, Golden Week is a huge holiday in Japan. It is a national holiday. You get about a week off, which is very long for Japan because we don't get big holidays here. And people can basically go out, party, have fun, do whatever you want. So a lot of people will go to the park, they'll relax, they'll spend time with their family. And so Akihiko, he decided to go to the park with his life-sized Miku doll and take photos of her in the children's playground. And this sparked a huge controversy. Of course, his rebuttal to this was saying that there weren't any kids around, but I find that very difficult to believe considering that it is Golden Week, it's a national holiday, and this is a public playground where kids are going to be running around no matter the time of day because, of course, kids wake up early. So I was definitely concerned by this, especially because not only was he bringing this doll out, this adult doll, but he also had her dressed in a school uniform. Now, as someone who is a doll collector, of course, a lot of people said to me, what's the difference between bringing a normal doll and an adult doll? And I hope I don't have to explain in graphic details the difference between a normal doll and an adult doll, but there is a huge difference. A normal doll is age appropriate. It's not something that has, certain features that I'm not going to say on this video because I don't want to get demonetized, but it's created for display, it's created to look cute, it's created for aesthetic purposes or to play with. A adult doll may also have the creative details that are meant to be aesthetic or meant to be cute, but it also has aspects that means it is created for adult purposes, which means that it should not be around children. And I have to wonder if this doll looked less cute, if it was a blow-up doll, because that is essentially what this is, would people be having the same defenses for this man? Because I feel like half of the people defending him are only doing so because the doll is aesthetically cute to look at. If he was walking around with a blow-up doll of Hatsune Miku, I'm sure we wouldn't be saying the same thing. And that is where I have to say it is the same thing. Even if it is super cute, even if he sees it as his wife, it is still an adult toy. It is no different from bringing a other type of adult toy to a kid's playground, and therefore it is inappropriate. But I do find it concerning that he specifically chose a children's playground because there are so many different places he could bring an adult doll in Japan. There are so many different adult-based conventions that you can bring adult goods to, or you can dress in adult attire if you're into things like that, adult like R18 hobbies. There are a ton of different events in Japan for this stuff, probably more than any place in the world. So it was just very bizarre that is specifically where he chose to bring her. Not only this, but he also owns a ton of different Miku merchandise. I looked at his profile because I was curious if he owned any other Miku merchandise that he could bring to the playground instead. And whilst I still think it's a little bit weird having something like 40-year-old man going to a kid's playground by himself, I think it would still be better if he just brought like a small doll to the playground to represent her, and I wouldn't see that as harmful because at least it's not an inherently small object. It's a cute doll, which are age appropriate. They're not going to harm anyone by seeing them. Why don't you bring those out in public instead of the adult Miku doll? And that makes me think he is trying to get people to unwillingly participate in his, Whether he likes it or not, that is what he's doing. When it comes to these types of things, it is all about consent. Children cannot consent. Children cannot consent to seeing this type of thing. They shouldn't have to see this type of thing. It's inappropriate. And for adults as well, adults shouldn't even have to see this stuff if they don't want to. It's fine if you're in an adult-related space. For example, if he was at an adult-related convention or event, that would be totally fine. But to bring this doll out in public and make people look at what is essentially a toy in public is completely inappropriate. And I think it's really nasty and quite narcissistic, actually, to assume that people should have to participate in your delusion just because you claim it's your wife. Because yes, it's totally fine if you like a fictional character, if you're attracted to them, as long as you're not hurting anyone, but you are hurting people because you are exposing children to an adult thing, which they should not be seeing. But the reason he dresses her in school uniform is actually worse than I expected, because I was half assuming he would say, oh, it's just because it looks cute, whatever. The reason is so specifically creepy that it made me very uncomfortable to read. So he actually wrote a tweet about the reason he dresses his Hatsune Miku adult doll in school uniform. He says, my junior high school uniform for girls was a jumper skirt, but back then when I was in junior high, I was only interested in real women, so when I suffered from being constantly rejected when I confessed my feelings, I hugged Miku wearing this outfit. And I remember feeling like the wishes that had gone unfulfilled in the past had been transformed into two-dimensional reality and finally come true. So the reason that he dresses her in a school uniform is because he was rejected by his crush when he was like a teenager, a very young teenager in school, and this was the school uniform that his crush would wear. So by dressing this doll in the school uniform that his crush would wear, he is giving himself a chance to not be rejected by the crush by hugging this doll, wearing the school uniform from when he was a child and this girl was a child, which is so unbelievably creepy that you as an adult man would do that. Like I don't even know where to begin with this one. It's crazy to me. It's crazy that you would even think that that's a justifiable explanation. I would always get crushes all the time. I got rejected. Does that mean that I hold on to that feeling of rejection and I create adult dolls wearing the same outfit that they wore? No, I would not do that. And if I did, I would probably get locked up in a mental asylum, and I would not even blame them, because that is crazy. That is a crazy thing to do. And this is not where this problem ends, because actually it turns out that Akihiko has a problem with bringing this adult doll to various spaces. He has not only brought her to the playground, but he has also brought her to Disneyland and also to a lingerie store. Now, I don't think I have to explain why bringing an adult doll to Disney is wrong, and it makes his point about saying, oh, there were no children at the playground, completely meaningless, because he's bringing the adult doll to places where there's going to be thousands of children, and there's no way to avoid these children seeing the adult doll. And then when it comes to lingerie stores, again, I know some people might disagree with me, but I think if you're going to go to a lingerie store as a man, the way that he is like a dude, I think you need to have a level of respect for the women and feminine presenting people who are shopping there, and you need to make sure that you're not making them feel uncomfortable. And bringing an adult doll to a lingerie store where women might be shopping alone, there might be young women shopping with their mums or whatever, that is so unbelievably inappropriate and insensitive to the people around you. I cannot understand the thought process, especially considering he could just order the underwear online. It's an adult doll. It's not going to change its measurements. It's made out of plastic or whatever. Like, it will not change its measurement. You could just measure the doll and order the lingerie online, and it's going to match the doll. Like, you don't need to go in person. And even if you did, it brings up the question of, why do you need to do that? Is it so that you can get the shop assistants to measure the doll, which is so inappropriate? Is it so that you can show off to people? Again, it really makes me feel he is doing this to make people participate in his obsession, and it's not kind to the people around him. It's very selfish. And again, I want to say, there wouldn't be a problem if he bought this lingerie to buy it online. Do whatever you want in your house, I don't care. But the fact that he is bringing this doll and putting it around women who are not consenting to seeing this is insane. I also want you guys to consider the fact that with Disney, there are going to be face characters at Disney. So kids are expecting to see characters such as princesses or to see like Mickey Mouse or whatever. So when kids see Hatsune Miku, they'll just think, oh my god, it's Hatsune Miku, and they'll go up to her. And when their parents have to explain why they can't take a picture with her or why it's inappropriate for them to be around her, I just can't help but feel awful for the parents having to deal with this, like having to see this and like try and keep their kids from going up to this doll, because of course kids are curious. They're going to wonder why this man is allowed to have this massive doll and they can't. So it brings a lot of concerns into my head. And again, I don't know why he couldn't just bring a smaller doll that is not an adult doll. To make matters worse, he never necessarily thinks he's doing anything wrong. He actually defends his actions by saying, is that otaku shouldn't show up in public? There is a history of excluding people based on specific attributes such as race, ethnicity, gender, especially women, religion, nationality, hobbies and preferences, sexual orientation, beliefs, etc. from the public sphere, and unjustly infringing on their rights. Some of those are documented in textbooks as discrimination or persecution. How long will humans keep repeating this? The difference between that and what you're doing is that what you're doing is a doll that is inherently used for purposes. And it does really bother me that he compares himself to people who have been discriminated based on their race, gender, because these are all things that people cannot control. You cannot control the fact that you're born a woman, or the fact that you're non-binary, or the fact that you identify as trans, or the fact that you, I don't know, are black, or anything like this. These are all things that we are born with. Whereas with him, he could easily choose to not bring an adult doll. He could bring a small doll. He could bring a plushie. He doesn't have to bring this adult doll. So his point is completely meaningless, because the reason he's being discriminated against is because he's doing something that is harming other people. If he was walking around with a Miku plushie, it wouldn't be to the same level. And I think that he knows this. And that makes me think that he's doing a lot of this for attention and clicks and views. And he does consider himself a feminist, but only because he sees himself as discriminated against the same way as women are, which now recently he actually did attend a wedding for his Yumejoshi friend who got married to a fictional character recently. And I would say that this is a great example of a place that it doesn't really matter if he brings the adult doll, because he's asked this woman if he's allowed to bring the adult doll Miku to the wedding, and she said yes, and they're obviously friends. And I think this is a great example of, yes, he asked for her consent, but he's not asking for the consent of the people in the park when he goes to the playground, or the people at Disney. So to me personally, I feel like this shows that he has the level of self-awareness to know that he should be asking, but he doesn't necessarily want to because he wants things to fit his narrative. And of course, he has dealt with a lot of criticism on X, as a lot of Hatsune Miku fans are now saying that they feel the character is devalued by him, and because of his reputation, it is giving the character a bad name. And another point that people like to bring up is the fact that Hatsune Miku is canonically 16 years old, or 17, I believe 16, which again, I think is true. I don't know, a lot of people also claim that because she is a character that you can mold into anything that you like, it means that a lot of people will headcanon her as adult if they're making certain Miku fan art or certain Miku designs, which is what a lot of people assumed he did when he married Miku. They assumed that he is marrying the representation of an adult Miku. Now, this turned out not to be true, because of course he's dressing her in the school uniform, and to give him the benefit of the doubt, he could just not be thinking about that. But when you see him write that he is considering her as his crush that he got rejected by when they were 13, 14 years old, it does make you think that there is something a little bit more sinister here. Now, Akihiko actually works as a local government employee with public elementary and junior high school children. Now, I don't really think that someone who has posted these things that suggest that they are attracted to someone of a much younger age, and also talks about how they dress up their adult doll in school children's clothing and then go to the playground with it should be working around children. And it surprises me that he is still allowed to work around children, considering that he has this reputation. Now, if you look at all of his profiles, he specifically writes in the description of his bio, private messages are not accepted from minors. And this makes me wonder, why do you need to say that? And I know this is like a bit of a reach, but it's like, as someone who is like a content creator who has somewhat of an online following, I don't feel the need to say private messages are not accepted to minors because I'm not messaging minors. Like, I'm not going to be going out of my way to message underage people in that way. So that's kind of suspicious to me that he has that right after the fact that he works with children. I don't know. But I just have a weird feeling about it. I don't necessarily think that someone like this should be working with children. And I know, obviously, you can say it's not real, it's just fiction. But again, if you are involving real kids in this, in the real world, by putting this doll in places where kids will be, I'm afraid that does affect reality. I feel like really someone like this, and this is not meant to insult him at all, this is just a genuine point. Someone like this, I feel like, would really benefit from having consistent therapy, because feeling like this is not normal, this is not healthy for you. It's not a case of like, oh, he's happy and he's doing what he loves. This is clearly someone who is mentally suffering. And I don't mean that in a cruel way, I just mean that in a genuine way, that you would think this way, because like I said, we've all gone through rejection. I've been rejected many times. It doesn't bother me. It's very normal. It's a very human thing to happen to you. You could be the most attractive person ever. You could be the most cool, funny person ever. You'll still get rejected. It's not a reason to behave creepy and to basically do things that make other people really uncomfortable and put other people's safety at risk just for your own happiness. But yes, so that is the story about the man who married Hatsune Miku and what is going on with him right now. I hope that this was interesting to watch, and please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that someone like this should be working around children? Do you think that he is in the right? Do you think that he's in the wrong? I'm so curious to hear, and thank you again so much for watching.